One thing that really stands out here is that 4 percentage points as a ratio of GDP just going up, but not going towards infrastructure development and everything. It's more on the wage arm of things. Tell me, what exactly does this mean, at least in the midterm?
One important thing to notice that is that growth generally in South Africa has been very weak over the past 5 years. In fact, has been about zero in terms of income per head. So that's a major challenge. There has been an increase in the level of wage bill, which especially in the government budget, has a tendency to crowd out other more productive spending, especially on capital and infrastructure.
Something that's not productive spending is the bailouts that our state-owned entities continue to get. And recently, Paul Mashatile, I think ANC Treasury General, said that they are opening up Eskom to be receiving private equity as a form to create that cash flow. Do you think that that's a step in the right direction?
It's clearly a step in the right direction. The government has undertaken a number of reforms in SOEs, notably by changing the management and boards of the SOEs, but there are fundamental issues which need to be addressed, notably those related to the cost structure, which is definitely quite high. For example, in the case of Eskom, clearly the wage bill is very high, and also the cost of procurement, especially of coal, is a big factor in the financial weakness of the company.
Monty, going through the report, the fiscal arm of things, away from the monetary side, is really disturbing. Let's talk about that, the road accident fund. This has gone up from close to 1.4% in 2007-2008 to a staggering 4%, at least this financial year. Is this necessary?
The road accident fund is clearly one of the biggest sources of what is known as contingent liabilities for the government. In other words, spending that the government may ultimately have to pay. As your viewers may be aware, in South Africa, the road accident fund is financed through the collection of levies on fuel, and in turn, this is the source of revenue for the fund. But the accumulation of claims is much higher than the revenues. As a result, the fund is insolvent and it's illiquid, and it has been in this situation for decades, frankly. What to do about it? There are a number of measures. Most countries, frankly, do have mandatory third-party insurance. In other words, if you own a car, you should buy some insurance so that if you hit somebody, or you should pay for it, or the insurance should pay for it. So that's in the long run what should be done. In the short run, I think there's possibilities of reducing the extent of or standardizing the amount of claims for particular types of accident depending on the injury, so and also reducing the cost of litigation. So those are some of the measures that can be undertaken.
Let's quickly briefly talk about the shift to spend more on education in the country. This call for free tertiary education, a very contentious issue in our country. The IMF's view on this, and really, will it benefit everybody?
There's no doubt that there are a large number of students who are deserving from poor families. That said, the current threshold, which is about 350,000 rand per family, is on the high side. In other words, if your family earns that amount, 350,000 per year or less, you are eligible to get free tertiary education. But in life, there's no free lunch. And a lot of people who are not exactly poor are benefiting from this, and by so doing, they are crowding out other types of spending, including on infrastructure, for example, including on other types of education, especially basic education. So this is the kind of debate that the country should have, the kind of trade-offs that need to be debated and discussed in order to arrive at a more reasonable proposition.
Brilliant. Many thanks for your time. We've been speaking there to Montfort Mlachila, who's a senior resident representative at the IMF.